Hello there, my name's Vicky Rosen, I'm an artist, and today for World Thyroid Day I am partnering up with the Thyroid Trust and showing you how to make your own fondant thyroids that you can then convert into butterflies, take on a butterfly picnic and hopefully enjoy. I'm actually a thyroid patient myself, used to be overactive, now I'm underactive. And these particular candies are something that I actually developed when I was working on a project for SMQB and the University of Birmingham as part of a research team investigating precision in anti-thyroid therapy. And the shape is a reference to the thyroid itself, which was in fact named for a Greek shield. If you've ever seen Troy, Brad Pitt is. And I've also been decorating them with butterflies because obviously the thyroid is a butterfly shaped gland, and they are absolutely full of sugar, so they also remind me of when I was massively overactive and I pretty much lived on a diet of sugar to try and keep my energy levels up, so that echoes back to that. So it's a very standard fondant cream recipe. You will need 220 grams of icing sugar, an egg white which is contained within here, food colouring and flavouring. So I've gone for pink food colouring to echo the actual natural shade of the thyroid, and I've gone for rose water because I love rose water. I love rose flavoured things, and I love rose fondant creams, but you can also use peppermint, lemon, anything you like. Coffee works really nicely with this as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is retrieve your egg white. So we're going to be using the big silver bowl, and so I always can do this until I need to. So you separate out your egg white. You've gotta love a bit of gloop. Okay, and then keep the yolk for later. And then what I tend to do is just put a tiny bit of the food colouring in to start with. This is actually quite full on as food colouring goes, but that will give us the nice pink hue. And also a little bit of rose water, so I tend to use just about half a cupful of this. It is quite wonderfully strong. And then whisk it together. Now, when you're whisking this, you're not after full-on meringue peaks. The whole point of it is to just get a bit of air into the mixture, so it's easier to mix into the icing sugar, and also it gives a far nicer, more crumbly kind of fondant cream. You can just literally stick it all in, but I tend to find that makes it a lot more like icing flowers. It makes it a lot more brittle. Now that looks slightly terrifying, but like I said, it's got plenty of air into the mixture there. So I'm just going to set that aside for a moment, because next we take another big bowl and a sieve Make sure that you sieve your icing sugar. I cannot tell you how much you need to sieve the icing sugar, or it will take forever to bind together, and then you'll end up with little lumps in it, and that's never fun. Righto, but you just want to keep that to one side, because chances are if you do need to add a bit more icing sugar in later, a little bit more icing sugar in later, then it's best to have the sieve to hand. So we now have a mass of icing sugar, and we have a terrifying egg mixture. So what I'm going to do now is spoon in probably about half to 2/3 of the egg mixture, just to give us a starting point, and we'll see where we go from there. Basically, what we are now doing is folding this in until the egg mixture and the icing sugar are completely combined. Ideally, we want a paste that's not sticky, but still quite malleable and easy to work with. So I shall get on with this. So that just needs a little bit more of the egg in it, because it's gone to sort of breadcrumbs type level. So let's get a little bit more of the egg mixture in there. As you can see, this is quite involved, but yeah, it is worth it in the end. It's very much like kneading dough, so it is about just kind of bringing it all together, but you can feel it starting to actually come together, which is absolutely fabulous. As you can see, so we went from powder to granules to now we're actually really starting. So if I pop this to one side, and if I just work this on the surface a little bit, and basically, ideally you want something that will hold together, like I said, like a paste. And so you can just get all of those little bits in with it, and the more you knead it, the smoother it gets. So basically, you keep going with the egg mix and this mix until you get a good consistency. I'm going to cheat slightly here and bring out some that I made earlier. If you want to preserve this to use it a little bit later, then you can always just wrap it in cling film or something like that. But as you can see, that is quite squidgy, it retains its shape quite nicely, and so now just going to sprinkle a little bit of icing sugar onto my surface, and we're going to actually shape the thyroids. So on these ones you can see that I've done them in various sizes, and really you can go for whatever you want in respect of sizing. It's entirely down to the situation. I like the big ones so you can kind of smash them up and share them, but then the little individual ones are probably slightly safer in respect of portion sizing. So to actually shape the thyroids, you need your baking paper on your wire rack, chopstick and a sharp knife. And so you're just taking a little bit of the mixture, rolling it into a ball and putting it down your surface and flattening it so you end up with a little disc. Now, to actually make the thyroid shape itself, take a chopstick and just push it down at the side there, and then pull it gently, and then on the other side, and then just use that to make that a little bit more circular, and just sort of mould the edge around to make that a little bit more pointy. And there you have a fondant thyroid. If you wanted to make a bigger one, just take a slightly larger ball. Basically, you're always starting off with a ball. And again, making it flatter. And also, if you turn it over, then you actually get the surface that you're working on rather than your handprint on it as well. And so what I tend to do for the slightly larger ones is just cut a little slit out on that side, and then a little slit out on the other side, so you kind of have a double-headed Pac-Man going on. And then again, taking the chopstick, putting it in the middle there, and then smoothing it round so that makes more of a natural curve. And again on the other side. And there you go. And then pop it just on there to dry. So when you've got your entire tray covered, you need to leave them to dry for around 6 hours. Normally I leave them overnight. You just place another sheet of baking parchment over them. If you can turn them halfway, that is also really, really good as well, because it means that it dries both sides really easily. And I'm just going to wash my hands, and then I'll show you how we're going to decorate them. So now you have your candies, but why not celebrate both the shape of thyroids and how much they are like butterflies by turning them into thyroid butterflies. So my favourite ways of decorating this kind of thing is using food colouring, and also these fabulous cake pens. which are really useful, particularly for the smaller ones. So I have a little one here that I made earlier. So as far as using food colouring goes, you do have to be very aware of how much you're using. You don't want to absolutely fill it full of E numbers. So I quite like to just have a little bit of a wash. And do a line across, and then the top wing curving round from the line. And then the bottom wing curving round there, and round there. And so you end up just with a very delicate line just around there, showing where your wing edges are. Now it dries relatively quickly, so I'm going to do some big blue circles using the cake markers. And these are really, like I said, they're really good for fine lining. And just follow that wing shape with the blue on the bottom. And I think I will go for purple as well. And there you have a completed butterfly thyroid candy ready for your butterfly picnics to celebrate World Thyroid Awareness Week. And thyroid awareness is very important, because I definitely found when I was overactive, because it essentially turns your fight or flight up to 11 and leaves it there. It's very difficult to accept that you're ill, and it's very difficult to accept that you're not just overreacting or not just going crazy or so on. And it's very difficult to explain to somebody who hasn't experienced it. But if I'd have had somebody telling me that my experiences were entirely normal and entirely to be expected with hyperthyroidism at the time, I would have had a far easier time of it, and it would have been a lot easier to reconcile myself to the condition that I had. So this is why these kind of events and awareness weeks are very important, and also supporting thyroid charities like the Thyroid Trust. The work they do is absolutely amazing for thyroid patients all over the country. So, thank you very much for watching my thyroid candy making workshop. These are really easy to change and use for different occasions as well. So if you just wanted to make a bunch of peppermint creams, you just roll them into the balls and flatten them. You can dip them in chocolate. It's a really versatile recipe, and I hope you've enjoyed learning it with me. Take care and have a good one.